Thank you for those who have come to sit in on this today. Come and join us. Yep. So let's get comfortable. The talk's about 45 minutes long. I won't be offended if you need to be somewhere halfway through, but I'd love you to stay. But yeah, I hope you have all had a beautiful journey to get here today. And also want to acknowledge the effort that the entire Mind, Body, Spirit community have put into being here today. It's actually a lot of people who have come from a lot of places. I'm also from Western Australia, so yeah, just want to acknowledge the land that we stand on here, the Gadigal country, and all the past, present and emerging elders that still take care of this land, and to welcome your own ancestors to this space today, whatever you have done to get here today, and be guided to this moment, this present moment that we get to sit in. Welcome. And obviously, as my title says, I'm going to be talking about human design today, and specifically about how to utilize this body of work in this really important time that we're on in the planet at the moment, with an incredible amount of digital products coming into the space, and AI particularly, of course, and how we cope with that spiritually, with our connection to ourselves. And I think human design is a really big key for me, and so I'd love to share that with you today. So my name is Kat Adami, and I have been studying and teaching human design now for 12 years. And I've also learnt to be an innovator in this space because I do use technology. I am not scared of it, but I also see the barriers and the blocks and the struggles. But a lot of what I have built in my platform and what I do with my sessions and how I guide people to use human design is using technology. And in that respect, I do really see the barriers and the places where it works for me, and also where it really doesn't. So yeah, thank you for all being here. So I want to start with this statement, because in my personal spiritual journey, it's been a really big part of what I've had to learn to get into alignment. So, you know, our kind nature, the way that we give to others, the way that we commit our energy externally through our want to be of service and be kind. And the question here is this keeping you from your true decision-making process in your life? And I'll explain a bit more why I'm having this conversation with you as we go. But it is a very, very big part of the ability to stand in your true guidance and know when to say yes and when to say no. I am a recovering people pleaser, believe me. I know the journey of saying yes to everybody and where that takes me and how that actually ends up impacting my journey in my lifetime. And I now have really learnt how to attune to my human design chart, because I've never seen anything that can teach me about how my energy really operates and where that authenticity in my body really comes from. And so I'm sure that we've all had these moments, and especially, I'm not saying men don't get the same thing, but we as women really, really do get a very strong pull to be of service to our children, to our family, to our friends, to our community. So, as you all know, the big buzz out in the streets is the Age of Aquarius is here. It's on our doorstep. We are entering into it. And I'm not sure if you know the details of this time on the planet, but actually these big overarching themes are 2,130 years long. And so if you consider if you're alive right now at a junction of a really big energetic shift on the planet, you're actually in the 3% of humanity who gets to live through this big change. And I personally believe as spirit, there's no accident that you're here right now on the planet at this time. So what is your service to yourself and to the planet? It's a really big question to ask, as well as really looking at, well, what are these themes? What are we looking at? What is going to be changing from what we knew in the age of Pisces moving into the age of Aquarius? And a huge component of that, of course, is the digital age that we're in. And how we operate in our individualization. Because we have had many chapters on this planet where it's not been about individualization. It's been about society conditioned rules. It's been about making decisions for the external reasons of everything that society has been built upon. And now we are looking to really create that individualization and the freedom that comes from that. And so now, even more than ever, we need to be able to attune to what it really feels like to authentically make a decision for ourselves. And yes, consider everybody in our world, of course. We're never going to change that. You know, when you're compassionate, empathetic, you know, even psychic beings, you will pick up on what people want from you and not want to disappoint anyone. That's a given. But it's not where we need to be to really enter into the chapter and the change that we're now on the edge of. And of course, you know, the social justice, the humanitarianism aspects that we're now seeing all over the place. We're seeing huge upheavals in the existing systems, in the governments, in the way that the people power is coming into power right now. It's not scary, but it could be for some of the real system-driven rules on the planet. But this is the time of change that we're in. And times of change can be a bit unstable, but also can be enlightening, grounding, you know, new information coming through, new awakenings and new awarenesses. And I'm sure you're all getting a piece of that in your own world at the moment as you take on this new energy that is happening on the planet at the moment. So the real danger that I feel is that with the new system of technology coming into the space, and this is meant to happen on the planet at this time, as much as it's dividing people and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, you know, there's always going to be the duality of the challenge and the goodness that comes from these things. But I actually think the danger is that if we don't raise our internal connection, our human innate intelligence, to connect to source, to know within ourselves what it really feels like to be aligned, the risk is that when this technology boom continues to grow, you may end up giving your power away to just another system on the planet again that takes you away from being that true, innate, intelligent, guided spirit that we can all be. So, as I've said, you know, these external systems, we're all really familiar with them from the past. You know, government and monarchy was ruling everything. You know, you had to make decisions particularly to fit into those systems. And of course, religion has always had its rules, and some of those are very good as in their values, but they can also stop you from really living in alignment with your life, because the church would condemn you if you did that action or you made that choice. And of course, you know, the law. And I think the law is a great thing to have, but we've all seen where it goes wrong. And sometimes I call it, well, it's not a spiritual law, is it? It's a society law, you know, and I do sometimes differentiate those two things like that. But also within our family systems, of course, our community, our friends. What will my friend think if I make that choice? What would my mum say? What would my dad say? And our conditioned element around the way we make decisions has always been very strong in that externally built way. And so there's a lot we have to contend with to make this choice of this individualism, these decisions that really do come, that are unique to you. They're within you. And also what happens if you go against that, if you try and fit into a box of somebody else's making? How do you actually feel about your life and who you are? So as I've mentioned, of course, you know, the big factor, the big elephant in the room is what is going to be happening with AI over these next, I think I'd be generous to say 10 years. I think we'll be seeing it within the next 1, 2, and 5. exponentially. So this, to me, is the most important thing we can learn to do right now, to become fully self-guided. And that means we have to become fully present in the present moment. And if we all have ways of escaping the present moment, but this is really the key. If you can learn to live in absolute presence and listen to your body, that is all it takes. You don't need to know your future. You will have it show up. You'll know exactly what you're meant to do because the path will unfold in front of you. You'll understand what you're being called towards, what your authentic yes and no is, and then you can move at lightning speed. I don't know what you guys, your experience is about what happens when you actually say yes when you mean no. What actually happens to your reality. But you become, in my personal experience, you get just a little bit micro decision after micro decision, a little bit off track. Not quite exactly where you're meant to be, not quite with your absolute vitality within you when you do that. And this is why at the very beginning I'm saying why, is kindness, is your act of service to others actually your greatest downfall? Because those little micro decisions, they just start putting you a little bit off track every single time you make one. And there is an art to disappointing people, to saying no. And Ra Uru, who channeled this body of work, and I'll talk about him in a moment, it was his favourite saying. No is the best word you can ever learn. And yet we are built upon the conditioning of being yes people. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but we need to transform this a little bit. Because if you do want to live in alignment, as I said, you've really got to get that sorted out so that you are exactly where you're meant to be. And I know this paradigm we live in is very dense, it's very physical, but if we were in pure spirit form and you think something, it shows up instantly. We have to remember, and again, it's my personal belief, but this paradigm we're in here, it's dense. We get some grace, we get time. But without this, if we were just in spirit form, we would need to know this body of work. We would need to know how to do this. Because when you do in this lifetime, now that I have learnt how to do this myself, I just have the most magical coincidences constantly show up in my life. And I can bring the best of myself to every situation that I'm in. And yeah, I'm a real fan of it, as you can see, is really what I believe in. So I'll show you today a little bit how human design can help you. And human design, I have had this modality with me for a long time. It's not the be-all and end-all. There's lots of incredible ways that you can do what I'm talking about today. But you first have to really understand what are these energetic cues that are unique to you. And human design will show you that because of the way the body graph works, and I'll show it to you now. So human design is a combination of 4 separate modalities. It is astrology, so there is a birth chart data component when you're getting your chart done. So you need to know the time and the place of your birth. So it's really strong with that astrological element. The Chinese I Ching, which is an incredible body of work that's 3,000 plus years ago developed in the Chinese dynasty. And again, it was a channeled body of work, actually used as a divination tool. And there's 64 different gates in the Chinese I Ching, and we call them hexagrams actually. In human design, they're represented as gates, which every single one of those 64 has a very particular human experience associated with it. And when human design came through, we were shown that every single one of those gates had a location within your chakra body. And depending on the astrological time you were born, they're either switched on and activated, or they're lying, you still have access to them, but usually through somebody else, through a connection with others. It's how we work with electromagnetics and being with other people. and also the Kabbalah. Now, the way I like to see human design with that Kabbalistic point of view is like at the exact moment that you were born, the universe had an expression of itself, which is vast, what we know in our known universe. I mean, human design does accommodate the asteroids and the planets, but mainly up to Pluto and Chiron and Lilith. But the universe was expressing itself energetically as you were entered into this paradigm in your birth state. And that pure energy shows up, that pure way of the way the universe was expressing itself is you. And yet we take this incredible strength, this incredible empowerment, this blueprint, and then we get conditioned. We get told not to trust it. We get told to live a certain way, and this is where all these external parts come through. And I feel like it's been my role is to come back to that pure expression of spirit, which I see in these charts. And so often when I'm doing a session for somebody, we do look at what that pure expression of spirit is and how it moves through you, your incarnation theme and your destiny and your personality profiling and all the gates and where they're situated. But we have to also consider, where do you get pulled away from that? Where is that hypersensitivity sitting in your chart where you'll, say as an empath, lurch into, supporting somebody because they're having an emotional drama when it doesn't work for you? Or a telepath who does what they think they should do because they're so used to picking up on the mental waves of those of their parents and their conditioned elements. So this is a human design chart for those who haven't seen it. We all have a unique body graph. And that body graph, as you can see here, am I in your way a little bit? Okay. That unique body graph is a combination, as I said, of astrology. So if we just look here, this is the sun, the earth, the north node and the south node. And every single one of these has got a gate next to it. So this is gate 17.5, and here is gate 17. It sits in the mind. So my sun sign is in gate 17. Gate 17 is called following in the Chinese I Ching, and it's about a logical expression of thoughts and being able to then move that down to the throat for explanation. So I guess you could say human design's fairly aligned for me. And so every single one of the astrological planets has the Chinese I Ching gate located somewhere in the body, and that's what makes it switched on and coloured in here. But you'll notice we have two sets of data, right? We've got the data here on the right, which is the astrological calculation of these gates at the exact moment you were born. And then we have over here the astrological calculation of the gates when you were still in utero at a very specific moment in time. Now, it's a channel body of work. He was told exactly how to look for this, how to calculate it, how to show exactly what that is, and it is pure magic. I don't know how it works, but it's ridiculously accurate. And so that is that's what you all get. This is actually my chart, but your charts are completely unique. I've seen every possible combination under the sun so far. And so this is Ra Uruhu. So when he channeled this body of work, it was 1987, and he was living in Ibiza, and he came home from visiting some friends with his dog by his side, and he was like, oh, I didn't leave my light on. What's going on? And he walked inside of his home, and his dog dropped to the floor. He thought he had died, but he hadn't. He'd stayed exactly in that same spot for 10 days while the body of work came and was channeled, and then the dog got up. And he thought he went a bit bonkers, as you can imagine. He called it the voice, and he said, it's not the kind of thing that asks the question. You get told what to do, and you do. Get a pen, write this down. This is how it is. And there's some beautiful stories about it. Apparently, the being said it was a star that was about to die, and it wanted to gift its knowledge to Earth. Either way, here we are. We have human design on the planet, and it's a combination of these 4 modalities that we've never seen put together before in the most accurate and understandable way that I've ever seen information passed in this way. I mean, astrology is good too, but you don't get a body graph. And you don't see how your chakras are connected, and you don't see how you make decisions to stay in this flow state, right? So they all work in together. So Ra did die. He died on the 12th of March 2011. And the irony for me on this is I was part of a international women's circle, and a woman in my community there, she kept telling me that her and her husband did this human design thing. And actually Shaitan Parkin, who runs human design for us all, is one of Ra's initial students, and I was actually had his wife in my course. And I'd opened my computer and looked at it a few times and go, I don't even know what that is, and just shut it down. And it kind of baffled and confused me, like human design does for a lot of people when they first see it. And then I was on my yoga mat on this day, and nothing would get me off my yoga mat. I lived in Avalon actually at that time, and I ran a business, and my staff would arrive at 7 a.m. in the morning, and I had a 4-year-old son, so the only way I would possibly get any time to myself was on that yoga mat. And I just had this burning desire, like I got to know what this thing is that I've been looking at. I really got to know. And I got off my mat and got my first chart 2 days before Ra died. And when I was exploring on the internet, he was obviously already very sick. And I was like, what's going on with this guy? And then I got to say that it was almost 2 days later that I read this, and it was like the biggest epiphany that I had seen for myself in my lifetime. And I'd been doing my spiritual work since I was in my early 20s. And from that day, it's like a lover that you meet, I guess, or a friend when you meet your besties, you know, and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to know you forever. I felt like this about human design. So a lot of people get that resonance with it, I must say. I see it all the time, and that's why human design's growing so much in the spiritual community. So this talk isn't really about AI. I mean, it is. It's about technology. It is of human design. It is. But really, it's about you. It's really about how you are working with your decisions. How are you in alignment with your life because you have worked out how to say yes when you mean yes and no when you mean no, and communicate that effectively to stay in flow. You know, it is your energy, not being depleted, not getting burnout, not overextending yourself, not being in the wrong place because you were trying to juggle everybody else's needs, like really, really being grounded and clear and present. And because it's your destiny, like you're really not going to end up living the life that you are like, man, that was a ride, and I know that I brought my spirit through. I know that I was on track. I know that I made the most of being the 3% on the planet living in this time. So I want to talk to you about today as, you know, I mean, I could probably explore one of 7, 8 different elements of human design with you today, but I want to really talk about this decision-making process, which is the authority, because when we really understand our inner authority, what really is going on for us, and without seeing your charts, I can't tell you yours, but as I go through these with you right now, you might actually recognize which one is yours. So just have a think about it as we go through, because we're not making decisions from the mind anymore. I have one of the decision-making processes, which is mental. But if we really want to get into alignment, we've got to stop thinking about what the world wants us to do and what really intrinsically we know already within ourselves, using our presence and using our awareness. So, of course, the big one that most of us have this center activated, actually, it's the sacral center. And 70% of the planet, 70% of people, so most of you will have this in your chart. And of course, we recognize it. It's instantaneous. It's that gut clench. It's that, ooh, something just doesn't feel right. No matter what it looks like, It's a gut clench that just goes, no. And yet when this center, which actually in human design, it drives a lot of energy. So you put out a lot of energy. If you have a sacral center engaged, you're also a generator or a manifesting generator, which is about the type, how you put your energy behind those decisions. But authority is specifically the decision-making process itself. So the next most common one that we have, of course, is the solar plexus defined, being that now you are an emotional decision maker. Now, about 50% of people have this on, but there's a percentage that also has the sacral center on as well, right? So an emotional decision maker, if this is you, you will recognize that sometimes you instantly say yes to someone and then you go to bed and you wake up the next day and you're like, why did I even commit to that? That is not going to work for me at all. Now you've got two choices as an emotional decision maker when that happens. You can either ring your friend and explain, I actually can't do that, I'm so sorry, like I didn't think about all the other things that I had on my plate. Or you can not want to disappoint them, not want to say no, and then you go and try and do it anyway. And in my experience with working with that and with my clients is often because the emotional body, because this is a higher form of guidance that your mind doesn't even understand yet, you get to the moment of the actual decision and you can't come, you can't go, you can't show up, and then you really let people down at the end of the day because you didn't follow the guidance in that present moment and you tried to push through to please somebody. So always say, catch your decision-making process in the moment it happens, because A, you'll stay on track, and B, if you let it go too far down, you actually have a higher risk of disappointing someone later than what you do today. We also have a decision-making process that is sitting in the heart space. It's pure willpower. So we call it the ego center or the heart center. But people who have this as their authority, there's only 3% of people who don't have the emotion center, don't have the sacral center, and only have this. But they are the most willful, direct, shortcut, fastest to the end people I've ever met in my life. And now when I'm doing my leadership coaching and my business coaching, sometimes we've got a leader who's just so cutthroat, and you look at his chart and he's got his heart center defined like this, and he just doesn't take no for an answer, and so it's hard to make them wrong when that is their truth. So it's a very willful center to have it on. If you have it on in your chart, you will notice that people might call you pushy. They might call you driven. They might call you, your way or the highway. But you've got to also understand that sometimes these things are part of who we are, and sometimes they're not. They're dysfunctional, and they could be a conditioned response. So we really don't know till we see your chart. The spleen center, now for those who can count, you'll see there are 9 centers, not 7, when we're talking about the way the chakras are represented. And when Ra channeled the body of work, he was told that we now have an activation of an additional 2 awareness centers that will carry us through this big change period that we're now living in. And one of those is the spleen, which is connected to our flight or fight, our fear state, our survival state, and our intuition. And those who have the spleen in their chart, and as I said, you can have this and the sacral and the emotions and the heart, but then they're all working in their own unique way depending on the way that the wiring works. But the spleen in itself, to me, is more akin to the animal kingdom. It's pure intuition. It fires in the second. It picks up on all of the external noise and sound and movement and change. And it's like, run, stay, you're calm, everything's fine. So yeah, the spleen is very much sparks in the moment like the sacral does. So, and then we have self-identity. So the self-identity is also one of the new, we normally see the solar plexus in this spot when we're looking at a straight chakra system. But our G center, our self-identity, how do we become individualized? All the love gates sit here in this, all of the Chinese I Ching gates associated with love, love of self, love of humanity. They're all in here, but also the leadership gates, particularly those that come from the self center straight to the throat center. And so it is very individual expression of self. And yeah, those who have this authority really need to hear it in their voice when they speak. When they can feel the resonance, they can feel the authenticity in their voice, they know they've made the right decision. But it's a bit slower than, it's similar to the emotion center, but it's a bit slower than the sacral and the spleen and the heart. And then, as I said, there is an authority that's associated with just the mind, but these people have the mind coloured in and everything else white in their chart. They're incredibly sensitive beings. I've met two in my life and through my readings, and they really need to have a really good mental soundboard, someone to share all their ideas with, but not someone who holds them to them. Oh yeah, well you said that, you got to do it. You know, it's the very cognitively driven people, but highly sensitive in the way that they're picking up energy from the outside world. Could be a really difficult chart to hold for some, but I've seen some hold it really, really beautifully, usually through a lot of meditation. And we have the lunar authority, and that is when you have absolutely a completely white chart. And I've read for three, we call them reflectors as their type in human design, but a reflector in type will always have a lunar authority because they are completely white. And so, as you can imagine, that creates an incredible sensitivity, and I'll explain why in these next slides. So I think I've made it really clear that understanding this authority, I believe the gift that you get for learning to be present, learning to actually trust this part of your chart, is what I call flow state, direct connection to your higher self, and you no longer have to worry about being in the right place at the right time anymore. Life literally shows you where to be and how to be, and that is where the coincidences happen. That's where the magic happens. And I'm sure you've all had parts of your life where you look back and you think, God, I was just on fire in that moment in my life. Like everything was working for me. This dropped and I met my husband and then I did that. And then suddenly a micro decision or 4 or 5 or 10 later and you're like, what happened to my energy? I don't even want to get up anymore. I hate this job. So what we really want to try and aim for, because this is how we learn and we're here to learn this, there's no problem if you're like that in an area of your life, but it's really ask yourself why. And what could I be doing with this incredible amount of energy that I have to share in the world rather than do something I'm not enjoying or being in a situation or having a friend that brings me down or whatever it is for you. It's getting into flow state. That is the aim, where life happens for you. Of course, you've got to just stop dragging around some other jigsaw puzzle version of yourself that you think you should fit in somewhere the way that you do. And you've got to stop also asking what's the right thing to do, what will other people think, you know, what do others expect of me, you know, I should do that, not this. You know, those things, they're just, they're the old paradigm, guys. It's done. You really have to trust you and trust you. And, you know, this sounds so easy when you say, oh, just trust yourself. I can tell you it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. To really honestly not beat yourself up when things go wrong. Really have yourself. I've got me. I don't need anyone else to have me. I've got me. I've got a beautiful partner. I adore him. But if he didn't exist right now, I would have me in equal measure. I don't need that external validation anymore. And that's because I've been practicing having me more than I have anyone else, because being an overactive people pleaser was throwing me off course all the time. So coming back to my chart for just a moment. Now, I can tell you this was what was throwing me off course. My head isn't connected to my throat, and my sun sign is in my head. Its predominant energy is mental. And then my sacral center very clearly runs to my throat center. sacral to throat, manifesting generator, wants to be in action, wants to put my energy and my words in the same room. But when my gut would go, my head would go, oh, no, 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 no. No. There's something wrong with you. That must be connected to that gut feeling that you've got, Kat. No, that's because you got hurt. Your dad was a bit of an alcoholic for a while. Now you're getting triggered. I'd honestly just tell myself my gut reaction was my trauma. And the more that I've been doing this work over the last 12, 13, 14 years, whatever it is, since 2011, forget the year sometimes, 13 years, the more I've done this work, the more I realize my gut has no memory. It has absolutely no idea what I've been through in the past. It never lies to me. It knows what's happening 6 months down the track when I absolutely do not know what's happening 6 months down the track. I had a girlfriend recently asked me to be bridesmaid at her wedding. What girl doesn't want to be bridesmaid at their closest bestie's wedding? And when she asked me, I was just like, no. I was like, what? What do you mean, no? And I was like, oh, that sounds amazing. I'm honoured, you know. Then she asked me, oh, would you like to now be the officiator and like marry them because they were getting married in Bali and they're actually getting married beforehand. She knows I like to, I'm comfortable with talking to people. And I was like, no. And I just had to say to her, something's telling me no, babe. Of course I want to. And yes, but no. And then my partner slipped over and he had to have a back operation. And it was right at the point where that would have been. So my somehow spirit knew, my guidance knew what I could not possibly have understood. And that's what it took. So I said no. I didn't let her down at the last minute. I gave her a lot of warning so she could sort that out. And if I hadn't have given her lots of warning, imagine not being able to turn up and officiate a wedding for somebody. I would have felt so bad. So it is that, for me personally, it was a head versus gut dilemma. But a lot of us have this because we're used to working with our minds in the way that we make our decisions. So it's a planet pandemic of its own. So yeah, how do we learn to really let that inner voice speak louder than the opinions of others? It's a practice. But now, that's why I say truth-telling is my North Star. And I'm not talking about, oh, I'm going to tell you the truth about you. I'm going to tell myself the truth about what I'm feeling. And then I'm going to, without judgment on myself or anyone else, express that in a really, really clear way. And that kind of truth-telling keeps everything in alignment. I actually believe in it wholeheartedly. And when we lie, or when we try and cover up, or when we try and, mask something because we don't want to hurt someone, all of these things just throw the present moment out of balance. We end up with this present moment distortion field that isn't true and it's not real. And if everything is about living in presence and in the present moment, you're messing it up big time. So truth-telling to yourself and to others is why I say it's my guide. It's how I get there. Emotional clarity, follow your gut, follow your intuition. They're all parts of this internal authority that we all have. And we really want to avoid it, the misaligned careers or the misaligned relationships and, the decisions that just make you feel like you're drowning and not really engaged with your life anymore. I think we've been over it. But the conditioning component is what I call the wild card in the room, because we all have this innate spirit connection to the universe from this moment that we were born. And then we have conditioning coming off the sideline and just scramble the entire pattern until you have to then wake up and learn about yourself and work out what's yours and what's not and what you really believe in. It's not just a growth from child to adult, it's a spiritual growth that we all have to go through. One of my roles is I started walking beside, in a leadership coaching capacity, an amazing Indigenous elder. I still work with her about 10 hours a week, and I adore her because I've never seen anybody with that level of conditioning come out the other end. She's 64 now. healed trauma, the most empowered person you're ever going to see in your life. And I truly believe it. I'm not really attracted to people who haven't struggled. I'm attracted to people who have struggled and learnt to become themselves, have then taken those struggles and then they use them to teach others, to be a support, to be a mentor, to actually overcome and grow. And that's real spirit in action. Life never happens, your conditioning doesn't happen to make you small. It gives you something to push against, to make you the strongest, wisest spirit that you can be. And I think we all know that. I've had so many failures because of this out of alignment thing that I played for a while with this gut and head thing. I went through the GFC and lost all my money. I went through COVID and lost all my money. And came out the other end going, what's going on here? This is a pattern now. So my failures actually were the things that woke me up, that gave me my keys of what was really going on. And then, even though this body of work had been with me for so long, I was like, I really, really need to get this right this time. So here we are. So if you're open to it, I'd like to give you another piece of human design that's really connected to this decision-making process. But to do that, it's just a bit of internal work for you. So if you feel comfortable, just go within for a moment. Just close your eyes. I'm just going to share a few things through my microphone. So just take a few nice big deep breaths and feel the energy around you, and then just bring it all into you and into your heart, and just think about your world at the moment, the life that you live, the people that you have around you, the work that you do in the world, the things you do for enjoyment. Just think about the complexity of all the elements of your life. Now, I want you to feel into any areas where lately you've felt frustrated, where something just hasn't quite gone the way you wanted it to. Or maybe you had an anger outburst at somebody and you yelled at them and then felt really bad about it. Or maybe you just feel like no one sees you, you can't seem to get the recognition that you want, and you feel a bit bitter about the way that your life looks for you at the moment. Or maybe you're just really disappointed about the way something worked out, the way things are gone. I know that we're focusing at the moment on the negative emotions, but these are part of your guidance system. They are not here to keep you small or to make you shoved into a corner of despair. They are here to show you in your energy when something isn't aligned. Now, you can take that with you today and think about what is happening in that area of your life, because as much as it is a warning sign from your body that something isn't okay, I want you to consider the micro decisions that have been made that led to those moments of frustration. Did you not get enough sleep because you were doing something for someone else? Did you just have an outburst because you hadn't been speaking your truth in moments before that? These feelings are what we call the not self themes in human design. And every single one of the authorities and they all have an associated not self theme when you've made the wrong decision. And sometimes it's not what you think it is too. It's not because you're with the wrong partner or you're in the wrong job. It can be something smaller than that. It can be about just not showing up in that moment in the right way. So I'm going to keep moving, and thank you for taking the time to just contemplate. I know it's thinking about those negative emotions are not really our favorite thing to do, but they are part of this presence that you need to have with yourself about how things feel when you're not in alignment. Because as a manifesting generator for me, I can be juggling 10 balls at once, and someone will throw something into my daily mix, and suddenly I'm frustrated. I'm like, and then I'm like, oh, hang a second. Oh, that was that last ball. No, sorry, I can't actually do that right now. I have too much on my plate. I'm going to park that. When do you need it by? So it's really catching, as soon as that little gritty moment comes in, exactly what decision you made that created it, and then rectify it as quickly as you can, because it can be accumulation over time. So when we talked about the not self themes, the reason with the emotions, and we talked about the white centers before when I showed you the chart, those white centers are actually your greatest gift in life. Let's say I talked about the emotion center, the solar plexus. If you have this white, you're an empath. So instead of having to filter your decisions through this emotional body, you're actually highly impacted by the emotions of others. And being an empath is a gift, and it's only a curse if you start making decisions. I don't want to upset you, and I have to say no to you, but because I can feel you're upset and I'm an empath, I'm going to say yes. And there you go, micro decision off track. So they're your gift, but you have to hold yourself. You have to know yourself, and then use those gifts which are in these white centers. So if you have a white centers in your crown and mind, you'd be double guessing what everyone else was thinking all the time. I know what she's thinking. I know what you just thought. I saw it. I heard it. And then now you're like, oh, well, I don't want her to think that about me, so I'm going to now make a different decision so that that doesn't show up for me, because that feels uncomfortable. And as a child, my son has an open crown of mind. As a kiddie, he was so easy to program. Do. And then he wasn't. He's like, no, I'm taking control. But you're going to have to be really careful in the way that you parent your children with this, because you can condition them. And he has got some conditioning that has occurred from his way of being parented by me and his father. And some conditioning's great, and some of it is really not. And I can own that. So yeah, coming back to my chart, so as we can see, I'm a 5-1 profile. So there's 12 profiles in human design. The way that you express yourself in the world, they're your personality. So you get that if you want to come and get a free chart or one of my other services, you'll know where to look for your profile. Is this little 5 on the sun and earth, and the little 1 next to the unconscious. That makes me a 5-1 profile. So it's the perspective that I see life from. I could give you a whole lesson on that, but not today. We've not got the time. And the authority, of course, is the decision-making process, and the type is the energy, the way your energy functions behind those decisions. And there's 5 different types. So when you're looking at your chart, you'll get these 3 keys, and then you'll go, oh, right, at least it's the first part of the information that you can take away with you and understand. But look at my friend's chart. So where I'm empathic, there's no word for this. When the sacral center's undefined, we know about empath, we know about telepath. But when the sacral center's undefined, I call them an energy path, because what else? This is the way people take action. And the projectors, which is the energy type that doesn't have this, down here, projector, they are energetically so sensitive. They can't be switched on running 24/7 like my energy will. They need rest. They need recovery. They need downtime. And they are the most common clients that I deal with who have burnout, who have pushed themselves beyond what is really, really right for their energy, and then they get wiped out. And they've got sometimes 8 months of recovery to get back to themselves. So really understanding these things about you, you can get a sense of relief. Every projector I've ever read for feels relieved when they go, oh, that's why that's why. It's like, yeah. See, now you can just let go of all that negative talk you were giving yourself about comparisons and just live yourself. It's beautiful. So this is why I say there's amazing card readers here, incredible intuitive people, and I also love them as well. But for me personally, learning to live in my present moment, learning to live in absolute alignment, I actually don't want to know my future. I think I would probably make it less or more, or a bit limited. Or I'd be like, oh, how am I going to make that happen? The present moment will take you wherever you need to go. It will guide you. And you just need to attune to your very specific way of being able to read your energy so that you can get there. So coming back to what we were talking about before I gave you a little bit of human design information. So really making alliances with AI, what does that really look like? Well, you definitely have to do it. However you choose, do not give up your innate intelligence. Do not hand your power over. Do not think it knows more than what you do. Nobody will know more than you do. No friend, no family member, no rule, no system can ever tell you what is right for you, but your guidance will let you know. So I do think technology is to be of service to mankind. And there are incredible things that we can do with it. I have had a little bee in my bonnet about it about a year ago. So I developed a technology-based product, which is like a chatbot. But because you can program AI, I said you're never allowed to tell anybody what to do. You can only direct them back to themselves. Show people in their chart where their decision-making process is. Help people understand their life purpose. Never, ever, ever give advice unless it is specifically associated with that person's human design chart. And now through all the trials, it's up and running, and it's connected to my course, my human design course. So you're in a course, you're learning human design. I've put questions depending on your type, your profile, your authority, and you just copy them, paste them into the chat bot, and it'll tell you everything you need to know about your chart, and be able, because of the complex prompting that I've given it, be able to coach you on situations or circumstances or how to deal with one of the discords that you might be dealing with and why it might have happened that way to help you realign. So for me, it's just an example. Technology can be here to serve us, but the true belief I have is that if we don't raise this innate intelligence, we'll just give it over to the artificial intelligence system. So yeah, really using technology, using AI, using it the right way. Do not ask it to give you or tell you what to do ever. Keep that trust in you firm, and then everything else will work for you. So yes, I really have poured my heart into this course. There's video content, there's written content. I'm just to say thank you to all of you today. I just wanted to let you know the other things that I do, so that if something today triggered for you some awareness or something that you want to learn more with, yeah, I'm here. There's ways to work with me in a self-guided way where you do the work, and there's ways to work with me personally. So yeah, as I just said, that little conversational AI happens within the course. So I also do free masterclasses, guys. So, you know, if you don't want to spend any money buying those courses or anything, the masterclasses are great. We have deep dive conversations on different topics. This one I have coming up next is the Design for Success one. Because of my business skills and what I do in business, I really like to align people's careers and the way that they make their money in the world with their design. It's not always possible for some people. You can get a little side project or something else that's giving you that. But I really love encouraging people with this massive amount of time we spend in our lives making money to do that authentically, and don't give up your passions and your goals and your dreams. So that's a free masterclass coming up. And a comprehensive one-on-one reading with me. I do those all the time for my clients. It's another way to learn more about your human design. Yeah, that's my share with you all today, and thank you for your presence. Your presence has meant a lot to me, and I really wish you well on your journey to continually lock in and raise your innate intelligence at this time on the planet. It's what we're really here to do. And I'm sure that you're all doing it in your own way. I'm here, I'm around for the next 15 minutes. If you want to talk to me, I'm totally available. So yeah, take care everyone, and thank you.